issue that I know you're going to be talking about sooner or later, and probably sooner, taxes versus pilots. I would again encourage you to get the pilot agreement for this project. The proposal from the company is $750,000. You know, as model publicity, that would include sharing between the two towns, the school, and the county. That also, I believe, has to include, Sue might clear this up for you, I think it also has to include any community agreements. Any community agreements would be taken away from that 750. So keep it in mind as you're talking about your proposal for the pilot versus taxing. Taxes, I've been looking over and over and over again, nationwide studies, and the industry tells us that it costs, it will cost, or does cost, somewhere between 3.5 and 5.5 million per tower to build this thing. That's the cost of the entire farm, cost, and they base it on the amount of power that's going to produce. So between 3.5 and 5.5 million per tower. You multiply that out times your 38 towers, the potential of adding 130 to $200 million assessed value to your tax rate. Now I know, you know, there's going to be assessments from an outside agency. You wouldn't expect a local assessor to try to assess these. But keep in mind that that goes on your tax roll at whatever level, whether it's full value or whatever level, then that's there. And as your tax rate increases over the years, your income from that keeps going up and up. Keep in mind it's a 30-year pilot. They're proposing a 30-year pilot in their PSS, preliminary scoping statement. But they also admit that the life of this farm, the tower, is 20 to 25 years. So think about that. Proposing a 30-year pilot for 20 to 25 year life of a farm. I'd be glad to meet with you as a group or individually anytime to talk about this pilot thing and the information. We're working very closely with the county, the other towns, and the school district on this issue. And believe me, they are very strong in their opposition to pilots. The other thing I want to mention, I hope it's maybe saves you a little brief on here as you discuss your wind laws coming out. I don't know if any of you saw this afternoon, but very late this afternoon on the DPS site, Department of Public Service, the DPS staff commented on Adam Grid's proposal, and it was brutal. Please read it. Just one point that I want to save you some time. It says, setbacks required by local law. If the setback or height requirements vary by involved municipality, in other words, it's different from Perishville and Hopkinton, staff recommends that the applicant adopt the most restrictive regulations or develop uniform setbacks and height standards for the entire project. So to save you some work, Perishville is already done. They're having final approval on Thursday. But their setbacks are 5 times the height of the turbine. Their sound levels are 35 dBA at night, 45 during the daytime. Look at this. So this is Article 10, citing. And there's a 30-page document that they published this afternoon about a lot of issues in the Adam Grid proposal. They tore it apart. Look it over carefully. But I'm saying on this issue, the setbacks and sound, save yourself a lot of work to do. The minute prepared for bid, if you don't, we're going to do it for you. Say you have to go by, they will go by the most restrictive requirements. Thank you.
Yes, I just want to follow up with what Gary was saying by saying we now have in excess of 750 signatures against the pilot, and that is growing by leaps and bounds every week. So there's also a lot of sign in favor of moratorium. We're continuing to get signatures just in case, but just want you to know that there are many, many people opposed to a pilot, and you are elected to represent their wishes, and this is a reminder, it doesn't seem to be favorable for a pilot. Thank you.
Just want to kind of link together some of the stuff they've said, why setbacks and decibel levels matter. The reason we look at 35 dBA at night is that's when people need to sleep. If you remember the two gentlemen that came from Lewis County, and one slip where they said the schools get the money and we get the complaints. We don't want you guys to have to go through any more of this, harassment and hassling and problems. So we don't want you to get complaints, and the way to do that is to set 35 decibels at night, accept that. And it's not just a decibel level. There's two kinds of sound, 3, 4, 5, something, but the 35 decibels and the larger setbacks protect people from the infrasound, something that we can't really hear, but kind of like we feel. And that's what Kenneth Siberly told you about. That's what upsets people. That's what, in our estimation makes people sick. So I hope you guys will, go on to that. And one other thing on the DPS site today, as you know, the Avangrid folks wanted to say in their preliminary scoping statement, substantive local ordinances that the applicant requests that the board, the siting board in Albany, not apply. The siting board took offense or had problems that the company wanted to ignore the wind overlay zones. And here on page 31 of today's comments, I won't read it to you, but it just says that the town of Hopkinton is actively considering changes to the overlay zone. Town of Perishable draft ordinance prohibits wind turbines outside the overlay zone, however. A significantly revised analysis of local laws consistency will be necessary for an Article 10 application. So we need to match those up, and your wind overlay zone needs to stand. So don't let the company bully you into saying you don't have a wind overlay zone. Thank you.
My name is Gail Kelly and I live in Hopkinton. I'm here to encourage the board to support the Northridge Wind Farm project. The projected payments from the wind farm, $23 million over 30 years, could be used to lower taxes or assist the county with updating and maintaining facilities. I will say that a lot of people I've talked to personally believe in this, but they're not going to come here. They're not comfortable with this type of setting. The payments could also assist the school district with improving curriculum and reinstating popular programs that have been cut due to budget deficits. I think we are being offered a fair deal. The projected payments our towns would receive are 20% higher than what the Noble Clinton Wind Farm pays to their involved towns. Both projects are of similar size. I also feel that this project would give our town a much needed economic boost. Jobs will be created to construct and maintain the wind farm. The payments made for landowner leases, easements, and good neighbor leases will also help the local economy. I urge the town board to develop sound standards that are consistent with the World Health Organization. These standards will ensure residents' health and safety. Avangrid has designed the Northridge Wind Farm to meet these standards, which are 45 dBA sound at the exterior of nearest non-participating residents, 2,000-foot residence setback, and 1.5 times turbine tip height to property boundaries. These are realistic standards that everyone can work with and are more strict than many of the other operating wind farms in northern New York. I also believe landowners south of Route 72 deserve the same opportunity to receive the benefits associated with using their land for wind development as other landowners in town. The town does not arbitrarily discriminate against other land uses south of Main Road 72 and should not do so with wind. I say to the townspeople who are concerned with visual or lowering of their property values, I respect your opinion. I say to the townspeople who are concerned about noise, your refrigerators, furnace blowers, vacuum cleaners, and blenders are all louder than wind turbines. I say to the people who are against the wind farm, but do not live in Hopkinton Parish, please let us decide our own future without outside influence.
Nancy Moran, Parachville. Last week at the Parachville Town Board meeting, the Niagara representative said that if they would be required to establish setbacks that would lessen the probability of health risks associated with wind turbine syndrome, there would not be enough space for the turbines. To my mind, that would suggest that this site is not a good site for a wind project. And the fact that Iberdrola ignores the issue of our health speaks volumes about their priorities, money over the health of our community. There is a lot of discussion around Iberdrola's so-called good neighbor agreement, which pays non-participating landowners to say nothing negative about the project, which could indeed include any illnesses these families might succumb to as a result of wind turbine syndrome if the setbacks are inadequate. If the issue of wind turbine syndrome is not real, as they suggest, then why are they offering to pay people to keep silent about any negative health effects that might occur? This is plain and simple hush money. How can you trust such people? A real good neighbor agreement would be one in which we all win. The leaseholders get their money and the non-participating landowners get the required setbacks that will protect them from the debilitating effects of wind turbine syndrome. Our health, our property values, and our well-being are in your hands. Do right by us.
Janice? The problem as I see it is that there are a handful of people who view the project as beneficial for themselves and possibly the towns. These arguments do not justify the process we are having to endure. Those of us who have been spending our days researching all aspects are doing so out of an ethical need to do what is right for our community, our local habitat, for the environment, and our health. For those of us with children, there is an additional force pushing us to fight these terrible setbacks and DBA limits, which will not protect. We have listened to live testimony, YouTube testimony, read scientific journals, articles, papers, read statistics, and even checked out the turbines firsthand. The conclusion is that industrial wind turbines are dangerous for our health, and we cannot allow them to be sited improperly, which is to say, this close to our children. For those of you who insist on working with the company, I beg you to stop. I want my children to be able to stay in our home. Here's a quote from a Vermont paper. 45 dBA is only applicable to urban residential areas, and even for those communities is not sufficient to protect them. Ontario and other Canadian provinces have regulations setting 40 dBA as the not to exceed threshold. That's during the predominant regulatory setback distances in some EU countries are established by multiples of the turbine's height, at least 10 times the total wind turbine height, or 10 times the blade diameter. I urge any board member who does not favor a moratorium to step down. You do not represent the majority, which is what you are elected to do. There is overwhelming support to keep the setbacks as large as possible to protect, and the DBA as low as possible to protect. 45 is too high. 1,800 feet or even 2,500 feet is too close. Either way, there's no protection for us when they're out of compliance. We need you to do what other towns have done to protect specialists that Iberdrola brought to Parrishville, that came to our communities, are not credible and should be ignored. All of their input should be ignored. They are paid car salesmen. Chris Olson is notorious for once stating during an open house that reading comments on blogs where the victims describe their symptoms and suffering, that they are better than porn. Those are his disgusting words. This shows a severe lack of empathy. He was paid $20,000 to review documents and appear as an expert witness in the Guns Hill appeal, as he has with other wind developers. Trained in chemical toxicology, Olson admitted before a tribunal that he has taken one course in epidemiology and one lecture in acoustics. He is not licensed by any health professional regulatory body. This is from the Woodstock Sentinel Review. And I could go on and on. There are so many papers on the DMM site, and all these people stating how they feel about this, and the majority is against it. Please read all of my comments, as I'm also adding any scientific articles that I find so that people can educate themselves, because there's so much to read. It's endless. Thank you for your time.